We celebrate today the feast of the Holy Family of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. And the church is inviting us on this day to model our various families after the family of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. I mean, we cannot overemphasize the essential place of the family in our salvation history, and we cannot also overemphasize the place of the family in nation building. For us to truly preserve our nation, we also have to begin by preserving the family as a basic cell of the society. And for us to truly preserve our family values, then we have to begin to recognize the need for each and every one of us to understand and to integrate those values. We have beautiful values in our various family systems. We have love. St. Paul today in his letters to the Colossians says we should put on patience and perseverance, kindness, and above all, love. I mean, these are the virtues, values you find in the family, because it is in the family we learn how to love. We learn how to be patient. We learn how to be responsible. It is in the family, from the family, that we learn how to forgive and how to accommodate. Just imagine how many times we do quarrel in the family. Imagine how many times we quarrel, how many times we disagree. Husband against wife, wife against husband, children against parents, parents against children, children against children. How many times do we disagree, or how many times do we quarrel? We recently had our family meeting. We had it online via Zoom, and everybody in my family, everybody wants to talk. Everybody wants to really contribute, and we're all like talking. At the point, we're all talking at each other. I'm like, what's going on here? But that's the beauty of the family. It gets to a point where we all want to recognize the fact that we are all important, and I have a voice in this family. I have to say something. But the beauty about a family is that even after all this, after we've disagreed and we've quarreled, what do we do at the end of the day? I mean, we still eat around the table together. And before you go to bed, you say to your spouse, I love you. And you say to your children, I love you. This is the beauty of family life. And it is where we learn how to forgive and how to accommodate and how to be responsible. And there are times too, my dear friends, we could notice the tension between the values in the family and the values in the society. And I know many of us here, could be experiencing these. You've given your children the best of Catholic education. You've given them the best of the faith. You've trained them up in the ways of God. They've been baptized. They've received Holy Communion. They've been confirmed. But what happens when they leave the family and when they go to college? What happens? They are caught up in a completely different culture. And you're wondering what's going on. And oftentimes, we come to realize that this culture out there may be opposed to the culture in the family. The values out there may be opposed to the values in the family. So on a day like this, we are not just reflecting on the family as a composite unit. We are also reflecting on how the family can transform her members, so that as they leave the family, they go out there to transform the society. Now, what do we see in the Holy Family of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph? Joseph obeyed the will of God, even when it was the most unimaginable thing to do, even when it was the most unbearable thing to do. In silence, he approved of the will of God. Joseph never altered a word, no sound, no voice, no word, but in silence, he approved of God's will. He took the risk. He took the risk of being punished by the law just to protect Mary and Jesus. And he was to protect a pregnancy he was not responsible for. And just imagine that. Just put yourself in the shoes of Joseph. What would you have done? What would I have done? Let us put ourselves in the shoes of Joseph. I would have complained. I would have complained and complained to God that this is unbearable. I mean, how do you ask me to be responsible for a pregnancy not coming from me? I would have complained that it is too much for me to handle. Already, I would have told God, I also have my personal problems. I have enough problems to deal with, so do not add an extra problem to my existing problem. I mean, I would have complained. And how often do we also complain when things do not go our way? When life becomes unbearable? When we experience the unimaginable? How often do we complain? How often do we feel like calling it quits because it is overwhelming? Joseph, in silence, approved of the will of God. Now, after you've put yourselves in the shoes of Joseph, now put yourselves in the shoes of Mary. I mean, how would you have felt if you were told that your child, you've taken your child, you're taking your child to church for baptism, because our baptism is our presentation. Our baptism is our consecration to God, that we ultimately belong to God. And just imagine you're taking your child to church for baptism, and the priest looks at you and says that this child will cause you pain and sorrow. How would you feel about that? That a day that is meant to be a day of joy, a day of thanksgiving, you're grateful, happy to God, and we celebrate that. We celebrate that. When people are baptized, when babies are baptized, and when they receive Holy Communion, it calls for celebration. And all of a sudden, the priest tells you, well, this child you're bringing to church, this child will cause you pain. And this child will cause you sorrow. I don't think you'll be happy with the priest. I don't think anyone will be happy with the priest. Already we'll begin to see the priest as a prophet of doom. But that was what Mary went through. That was what she went through. She experienced such sorrow. A sword to pierce your heart. And the secret thoughts of many shall be revealed. Our Lady of Sorrow. And just put yourselves in the shoes of Jesus. Just imagine his agony in the garden. Imagine the scourging at the pillar, the crowning with thorns, the carrying of the cross. And just imagine that. When he lamented in the garden of Gethsemane, not my will, but your will be done. Take this cup away from me, but not my will. Just imagine the excruciating pain he experienced on the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me? So we come to see a common thread in the Holy Family, that through suffering, they obeyed the will of God. Through suffering, they obeyed the will of God. And how do we preach obedience today in our secular age? It is such a difficult concept today. Because, this concept, obedience, is being misconstrued today. There are those who think that, to obey is to be denied of their freedom. It's like obedience now represents, suppression. It's like it is oppression. They think that, obedience is the denial of freedom. And that is where we are today. So, obedience to authorities, obedience to parents, this is just oppression. But in true obedience, my dear friends, there is no superiority, there is no inferiority. In true obedience, we find an expression of trust. I obey because I trust. I obey because I truly love. I obey because I respect, because I honor, because I revere. The fourth commandment says we should obey our parents. So the one who obeys is not the slave. The one who obeys is not the inferior. The one who obeys is the one who is honored. Because when we honor our parents by obeying them, we are also honored. I am honored by honoring others. And that's the beauty of obedience. So we are honored when we honor others. We are obeyed when we obey others. We are respected when we respect others. The beauty of the Holy Family is that, everyone had his own role to play. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. It was not just about one person alone. It was about, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph playing their roles for our salvation. So it means, my dear friends, that the family is not about an individual alone. The family is about everyone who makes up that family. Everyone has to contribute, for the success, for the salvation of that family. So do not take the family life for granted. We should not take family life for granted. Do not take the love of your parents for granted, because there are those who are searching for that love. Do not take the love of your children for granted, because there are those who are searching for that love. Do not take the love of your siblings for granted. So if your parents are still around, love them the much you can. That is a Holy Family. If your children are still around, love them the much you can. If your siblings are still around, love them the much you can. And as long as we are still alive, let us show ourselves some love. Let us show ourselves some love, because, how do we love in the family if we do not love ourselves? How do we respect others if we do not respect ourselves? How do we forgive others if we do not forgive ourselves? We truly cannot give what we do not have.